The following video is a video game essay mixed in with my sense of humor, so there might be jokes not fit for everyone. Anyway, enjoy the video. What Remains of Edith Finch is one of my favorite video games of all time, for its story, its themes, its gameplay, and today I'm going to explain all of it. And take a break from the action stuff I usually do. The story is about a young woman who is the title character. She is pregnant and putting her child in danger for the sake of finding her family's history. And given that she's pregnant at 17, it raises a lot of uncomfortable questions. Her family is supposedly cursed, with each relative dying at a young age in a unique way. Molly is the first family member that we explore. Most cliche name for a girl ever, I know. It starts off with her being locked in her room without dinner. I don't care if you don't like broccoli. Don't you know that there are starving Ugandan kids out there? Because of this, she finds random things in the room for her to eat. Even the most toxic of things, that being toothpaste and berries. She later gets hungry for a bird until she becomes a cat and other animals and eats what they all desire. She then becomes an owl and desires to eat a rabbit. She then becomes a shark and desires to eat a seal. And then she becomes a sea monster wanting to eat her own kind. Guess she's gone from Finch to Dahmer, am I right? We then later play as the monster heading back to Molly's room, to the point where the monster is now under her bed, and Molly wakes up, and now she knows about him. While we are left to assume that Molly is now dead, we see a cat on the outside of her bedroom window. While this could just be symbolism, it leads some people, including me, to believe that Molly is still alive. There's even hints about it throughout the game too, such as Edith finding a stray cat, and Edie wanting to name that stray cat Molly. We also see that same stray cat in Lewis's part of the game. Barbara was a former famous child actor. Her story is told through a horror comic. Fun fact, in the 50s, horror comics were as big as superhero comics. Another historical accuracy in the entertainment industry are toxic relationships. Not only accurate in the time period, but something that still goes on to this day. It's explained that because she's so famous, there are tons of theories about her and her fast dater's death, but the comic we read is most likely the true story. It was said that her boyfriend was trying to scare her in order to bring back her famous prepubescent scream. There's also a psycho killer who enters the house, with John Carpenter's Halloween theme. Barbara kills him, quote-unquote, at first, until she is supposedly killed by tributes to Nosferatu, the Wolfman, and the Brain. But they were most likely a gang of stalkers. Can I join, please? It also scares her little brother Walter off into isolation. But we will explore that next. Walter, after the death of all of his siblings, basically committed a Bill from The Last of Us. The man-child stayed in his mother's basement for 30 years. With canned peaches as his go-to food. Come on, your mouth is watering by that image too. You can even open the cans as part of the gameplay. And yes, canned food can last a long time. It's like this game doesn't even want me to have flaws, which is a good thing. After 30 years, he's tired of living the same day over and over again, so he decides to leave. And is later killed by an internet meme. After Walter's story, we see that the train track is destroyed. So, maybe this is a true story, but we'll get to that very later. Also, just keep in mind, I never gave Calvin his own section because his story is less interesting to me. All I could say is, you play as him on a swing, and his death is an Elton John. What I like about Sam's story is that they make it clear that he's not a great father. Not bad or abusive, he just wasn't perfect. He had an up and down relationship with his wife, and had a strict chores list. And Edith's mom explains about his punishing tactics, such as him forcing her to go on a hunting trip, killing a deer, and her crying, and instead of thrashing out at her, he just lets her cry, and says, "I'm proud of you." The gameplay style here is another favorite of mine in this game, such as you taking pictures wherever you want, and the picture flipping after you took the picture. And he gets pushed off the cliff by the deer his daughter shot. Gregory's story is one of the most heartbreaking. Well, it makes sense because he's a baby, and he doesn't have a future. It is explained that Gregory had a big imagination, seeing things that others couldn't. Okay, maybe it's a good thing that he died as a baby, because I do not want to know what imagination he has during tween years. And was also a scary-ass baby. Man, Quasimodo is normal compared to this kid. The day of his death occurred during bath time, when his mother was forced to make a call with Sam. His imagination then runs wild, with all his bath toys dancing with Nutcracker music, which makes sense because classical music has a good effect on babies. When his mom comes back, Sam gives her another call. Because of his imagination, the bathtub overflows, and then he drowns. That's what you get for being annoying in public. This then causes Sam and his wife to get a divorce. And after learning about Sam, maybe they should. I have a few theories on how Gregory died in the bath. Could his imagination have been real this whole time? Could Gregory turn the water back on? Or could Grandma Edie be the main reason of his death? From the looks of it, Gus looks like a troublemaker. He could be a goth, he could be a skater, mostly from his choice of clothing. Who knows? After Sam and Kay's divorce, see, I remember her name now, writer's block. Gus never even wanted a new mother, nor a wedding in his backyard. Fair motivation? So he decides to fly his kite in order to mess with the wedding. His part of the game is that with the kite, you pull all the wedding decorations and the dialogue in the sky to make it fly with the kite. Until he is killed by the big tent. You should have went camping with your brother before he died, you bastard. Is it just me or does Milton look Latino? He actually kinda does look Latino to me. Anyway, Milton was an artist, and through a well-animated flipbook, good thing he wasn't rejected in West Europe, we see why he supposedly went missing. He found a magic paintbrush, then he went through a magic door. We even see the magic door in person in this game. You know what, I just want to knock at that door and go, "Hey, Milton, it's your sister! You're gonna be an uncle! Lewis is dead, and so is Mom. You're a jackass for never coming back." It's also hard to talk about Milton without talking about a game that came before Edith Finch, that being The Unfinished Swan. A game where you splat ink everywhere in order to summon a kingdom. The king in the game looks very similar to young Milton. You know, I wonder what a painting ghetto would be like. So basically, this is the Edith Finch cinematic universe. This also could support my theory that Molly could still be alive. Maybe the curse isn't just death. Maybe you just disappear and never come back. Lewis is the second saddest story in the game. While it's never said, it is hinted that Lewis had depression, and because of that, he fell into addiction of the Colorado drug. After he was sober, Lewis got a job at the cannery, a place where you turn fish into food. In the words of Kid Cudi, day and night, the lonely loner seems to free his mind at night. And we get a perfect example with an amazing gameplay style of Lewis's imagination while you chop up fish at the same time. You can even do both with the same controller. His imagination goes way out of hand, to the point that he never comes home from work. His story ends with him being killed on a guillotine before being crowned king. My main theory is that because he imagined a guillotine, he purposefully tried to kill himself. One of the most sad and relatable moments in this game. Great Grandma Edie is the longest living family member. For that reason alone, and what happens in each story, and choices of dialogue used later in the game, hint that all the stories are fake and she was the one behind it all. And the fact that Edith is named after Edie herself makes sense story-wise. Mostly cause main character and Queen Elizabeth being related. Edith Finch is a Rorschach's test. Everyone has an interpretation of the story. At the end of the game, you play as Edith's son coming out of Jojo Siwa's favorite object, and it turns out that the whole game was Edith's son reading her journal she was writing throughout the whole game. And the same kid died of AIDS 2 weeks later.